Okay. Welcome back, everyone. As Onisa said, to day 2. We're very excited to be continuing these conversations. And to kick us off for today, just to remind you, we're still using Wordly. Again, if you're having any difficulties with that, please find Onisa. She can help you out. And yeah, I'll invite our panelists, Almendra, Nabil, Julia, and Esther to join us up on the stage, please. Oh, no, it's okay. Yeah. All right. So today we're going to again hear from a variety of projects in different parts of the world. And hopefully also, again, kind of expand our definition of what we think of when we talk about open science and reaching different communities. So I am actually, maybe I'll just introduce folks here and then again as we call you up. So we have Almendra Cremaschi from Bioleft, Nabil Ksibi from Africa Pit Alliance, Julia Stewart Lowndes from Openscapes, and Esther Plomp from TU Delft. So star panel here. All right, so I am gonna do my best to navigate. Oh, you were gonna put on the carousel. Thank you. And just to explain what we're seeing on the screen, so in lieu of presentations today, what we asked our speakers to do is provide us a few key representative images, especially of their communities. So these will cycle through as they're speaking. So you're going to see images from the different projects. And again, we just thought it was a way to emphasize the communities that each one is working with. And so first I'm going to call up Almendra to the podium. Or actually, yeah, if you'd like to sit. Sorry. Yeah, you can stay there. Okay, sorry. Navigating between several things. So yeah, so I'm going to start with you, Almendra, and if you could just talk a little bit about, and then I'm going to ask each panelist to kind of share the story of their initiative. So how did you start, and just kind of to share that very personal story of your community?
Okay, well, thank you for inviting us. Thank you for all the amazing work you are all doing. I would like to acknowledge not only this community, but also the community I come from, that are farmers and farmer breeders from Latin America, from Argentina particularly. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about Bioleft. Bioleft is an organization that works on creating an open source seed system responding to concerns due to intellectual property rights or intellectual property regulations moving to living material, and the concerns that are related to the huge biocultural diversity loss related to that. We started as a participatory action research project or citizen science project or open science project. But now we are an organization on ourselves. We are based at the Center for Research for Transformation in Argentina. And we are working on 3 main tools, a set of open source licenses, a co-designed virtual platform, and participatory breeding projects. We are inspired by Linux and Creative Commons, and we co-developed, and when I say co-developed, I mean scientists, policymakers, farmers, farmer breeders, and consumers, a set of 3 open source licenses for transferring seeds. The licenses have a viral clause that states that anyone can use and improve and share the seeds as long as they commit not to restrict their further access to the germplasm or to the knowledge associated. Then the licenses have other attributes that are more flexible to allow everyone to participate, related to the permission to commercialize or multiply to commercialize seeds. They can be downloaded from our webpage. If you see your tables, you will see a lot of merchandising that I brought from my initiative, so you can search there. I hope you enjoy it. So you can download the licenses from our webpage and use it as an MTA, or add the licenses to your own contracts, or even through the platform. Our platform is the result of a co-design process. It started as a way of enforcing the licenses, but now it's a community. We have a seed archive and participatory field books to gather knowledge and data about seeds. We believe, and this is I'm closing with this, that we believe that open source seeds can't exist but through collaborative innovation. It didn't make any sense to open conventional seeds alone, reproducing academic capitalism dynamics that close the door to those who have developed our seeds since the origins of agriculture. We then started to explore participatory plant breeding as a strategy to invite everyone to develop seeds and knowledge, able to serve situated seeds and situated needs and expectation, connecting existing capabilities and bridging scientific with practical experiential knowledge. We are now a core team of 10 people, a network of 2,000 farmers, extension workers, and consumers collaborating and building a more just, democratic, and diverse site system.
Great, thank you. Esther, maybe we can go to you.
Hope this works. Yeah, seems so. I'm Esther. I'm a data steward at TU Delft, and I have many other hats, but I'll mainly talk about TU Delft and the happy holidays that just went by. That's because the images, or at least the drawn images that I shared, come from the Turing Way, of which I'm also a project member, which is very much inspired me to actually make the happy holiday image. Which is representing a lot of the project members of the Turing Way. And I think that's one of my main messages today. It's all about the people if you want to achieve anything. But also mainly the image with the people with the cape, which is one of the earlier images on data stewards. So that's my position at TU Delft. And we really started at TU Delft with these data stewards and moved from these data stewards to more towards open science. And so the idea was that we can't just ask researchers to share their data if they haven't even organized it themselves internally, because what would they then share? So this is why we started with the data stewards and the data champion initiative, which is actually why I really like that image, because the person has a cape and it sort of looks like a champion. And that also brings me to one of my fondest memory of some of the data champions, because this is in the Dutch context, and champion in Dutch seems more something that someone is very well at it, or they're on top of the rest, or being a champion, etc. And not necessarily as being an advocate for open data or open science. So one of the data champions back in the days in 2018, 2019, they were like, well, I don't really like the term because I'm not really a champion. I'm just doing my job. This term is very, very strange. I don't identify with it. So that also points to the importance of naming your initiatives well. We still kept the data champions, so we continued on, and they very much formed the basis of the TU Delft open science community. So it's very naturally flowed from just data to including software and all other open science practices. And I think I'll leave it there.
Great, thank you. Nabil, could we go to you? Pass the mic down. Thank you.
Hello everyone. All right, so I'm Nabil Ksibi. I'm a co-lead at the Africa Pid Alliance. So the Africa Pid Alliance is the, as the name says, Africa Persistent Identifier Alliance. The idea really came after a discussion that we had in the World Science Forum in 2020 with Joy Owengo and a couple of librarians from South Africa. After couple of weeks, we took the idea seriously. We had to think of what are we making to make the output of researchers from Africa more visible, to really move the needle on that percentage of research output coming from Africa. And then after a couple of interviews, meetings with stakeholders, with really champions from the communities, we found out that a digital objects identifier registration agency in Africa is important to have. That's gonna help improving this visibility of research data and works and outputs. But then we had to come up with a good idea to the DOI Foundation, something that is not existing. And we thought about what's more valuable in the African continent, which is the indigenous knowledge and cultural heritage. And when we presented this idea to the DOI Foundation, they liked it because there is no identifier really specialized or dedicated to the indigenous knowledge and cultural heritage. And then we started developing the idea until we reached the phase of having this digital object container ID, which is now a platform that is federating different identifiers from different regions, from different servers, including DOIs, ARC keys, handles, ROR IDs, ORCID. And then we found out that it resonated a lot with the communities globally because a lot of researchers, a lot of scientists are looking to the best way to navigate all these identifiers. And then, yeah, we gave it a go, and now we are in the final phases of the developments, let's say. We didn't had any initial funding. We were really counting on volunteering from the University of Nairobi, from our communities, and yeah. So here we are here. So I'm basically representing the Africa Pid Alliance and trying to replace Joy Owengo in a sense of yeah, presenting the project.
Thank you. And Julia, please. Ready?
Hello. Hi. It is so great to be here, and I'm really excited to be on this stage with all of you as well. So I'm here with Openscapes, and I thought I'd start with a quote. In 2022, Dr. Justin Rice, who is the deputy manager of NASA Earth Science, he said that the impact that Openscapes has had is unprecedented at NASA and over the last 2 years when he said that. And that's a big deal. Open science is really what has helped shift that culture change within NASA and beyond with their data users. So let me tell you a little bit more about that. So NASA Earth Science has a lot of satellites that collect a lot of data about our Earth, and that data is used for climate change research of all kinds, land use, many really important things. And their volume of data is so large that they are shifting those data to the cloud. So that means that their whole research community that uses NASA Earth data needs to shift their workflow towards a cloud-based workflow. That means that instead of downloading the data and working locally, they need to shift their compute to cloud. So that was a big challenge that NASA was facing of how to help a whole user system of researchers and beyond shift their workflows. And that's why Openscapes has been working with them, is because we help teams shift to new workflows. And so something that we did with NASA is that their data has traditionally been held in 12 separate data centers, and sort of through historic, like no fault of anyone, those have been operating pretty siloed within NASA. So we helped bring those 12 data centers together to talk to each other and build trust, to really shift towards what made them each unique, towards what made them common, and that helped them then see what they needed to do to shift, to create some common tutorials, to create like common approaches for using data in the cloud. So one awesome example to make this a little more concrete is that they've created a Earth Data Cloud cookbook that is common tutorials across those 12 data centers. It's one of the only places you can go to find data in the same place and ways to use these data in the same place rather than having to go to 12 separate places. And that's a trend that they're continuing. They've also created a Python library called Earth Access that is amazing. And it has changed a user's first experience to using NASA data from like 30 lines of bash code with like secret keys and clicking out to different places. It is now a 2-line Python command, and that sort of user experience is just amazing. And because this community has been teaching researchers as like one of their first steps, it was only a few dozen users that had that 30 lines of bash code system before Earth Access came to be, and now thousands of users have this much better experience. So it's really awesome. The experience that's going on at NASA is amazing, and other groups are seeing this and saying, it's possible, we want to do it too. So NOAA Fisheries has just set up a 3-year initiative to do the same thing. Their big challenge is not shifting to the cloud. Their big challenge is modernizing their data infrastructure and their workforce so that they can meet the needs of shifting fish populations, which are a huge part of not only food, but national security as well. So it's really exciting to see like these stories of how open science can, like, shift is possible, big change is possible, and then other folks are like, we want to do this too. So what does Openscapes actually do? What are we? We're really helping teams shift to open science through the idea that it's kinder science for future us, really helping develop mindsets away from our own computers and our own workflows that many of us were taught in, taught as academics. So really helping people, we have mechanisms for helping organize people, helping them find each other, empowering them with new skills and learning, and then amplifying these stories. So we've been working with academic and government groups as well as nonprofit groups. And we really think about this, Openscapes is not a software or a platform or an app. We're an approach, we're a way to work. And it's really created this movement of culture change where people see themselves in this and want to turn around and tell their colleagues and support other people.
Great, thank you. So you can see the breadth of projects that we have represented here, which I think is fantastic. But one of the things we're trying to do is kind of extract, general lessons learned, and all of yours rely on community participation, volunteer participation. How have you kind of stimulated the engagement in your projects, and then how have you worked to kind of coordinate this engagement to help you build momentum and direction? So maybe Esther, I'll start with you this time.
Thanks. Yeah, so I'm going back to people again, because the way that we approached it at Delft and the way that I like to approach this is to focus on the people that are already doing the work and to facilitate them in doing that. Because in my experience, it is not great to try to convince people that don't want to do it to do something. It takes a lot more energy and it's really not worth it. And there are people already doing the work. They just don't know exactly how to move things forward. They might not have the time and energy to do that. And so as a data steward, because I'm literally paid to do that, I can actually facilitate them in continuing their work and highlighting their projects or their ambitions. So for example, we organized a carpentry workshop, a beginner programming workshop, because 2 researchers actually wanted to do the workshop. But then they might not have the resources to set up the entire course. They don't want to give all of the training. And so then we took part of the training, but they really drove providing the training, getting people into the training, etc. So it was a really nice collaboration between ourselves as support staff, so to say, and researchers. And it does really well in bringing that together. And another thing that I wanted to highlight is, for example, at my faculty, we have an open science team. And these also consist of not just researchers at my faculty. So I'm a part of it, and I'm not an active researcher at my faculty. But there's also a manager person, there's PhD candidates, there's professors in that. And having this wide range of people together makes it really effective to drive change, because when a professor and I think we're there, we're sharing data, we're doing a good job, and then one of the PhD candidates says like, well, that's not what's going on in my research group. You get really pulled back to the working level where sharing data or sharing code is not yet the reality. So I've really enjoyed working with that team. And in the shared note documents, there's a link to an overview of what we've been doing as a team, if you're interested. Yeah, and I think in terms of engagements, it can only get very serious if you have management support and resources, because that's why we're able to do so much at Delft, because I have a full-time position to really do the work. Researchers are not hired to do this work. Unfortunately, we're not there yet. And so unless someone has dedicated resources and someone on the higher level saying, we're behind this is where we want to go, you can't really move forward. So we've been very lucky at Delft having this higher level of support so that we can really facilitate this engagement and really put the work in.
Great, thank you. We'll just go down the line. Almendra, did you want?
Well, I'll go back to the origins of Bioleft again to explain this, because Bioleft emerged as a spin-off organization from a participatory action research project funded by Future Earth. And we had a funding of 3 years to experiment with social innovation without a predetermined objective. And that gave us the opportunity to explore what people were interested in doing. And at that time in Argentina, the seal law was supposed to be changed by UPOP 91, that is a more restrictive law that limits the circulation of seeds. So people were already concerned about the topic, and they were looking for spaces to participate and collaborate, as the case of Esther. So from there, we have stimulated engagement by combining different factors. One of the first of them, the one that I just introduced, was a sense of urgency. People really wanted to do something about that. And the second one was what we call the sand clock of participation. In the context of a project, we opened up participation to everyone that wanted to discuss. And we sat activists with representatives of big companies together with policymakers. And there we learned a lot from the first year of the project. And the main learning was that open source and open access was a bridging innovation, or what we call a boundary object that connected different people that weren't used to collaborating, but that they had the same values. So we continued collaborating with them with a reduced group until we had a clear horizon, a clear goal that we wanted to achieve, keeping, of course, some flexibility, but having a clear direction. And there was when we opened up again and opening the dialogue with policymakers and with small companies, and inviting everyone to the table again, but with a clear idea. And that worked really, really well. And lastly, we combine, this is a very technical thing, but we combine 2 crops that represent different sectors of agriculture. We work on maize, as you can see in the pictures, and also tomato. And maize is appealing to a certain sector of farmers, while tomato is appealing to everyone, and it's a very sexy crop that everyone wants to taste and everything, and it worked a lot. The last thing I wanted to say about this point is that attracting the interest or in the initial engagement might be easy, but I think that Bioleft's main achievement is having or establishing long-term relationships. We are now in our 8th year of life, and we started with 3 researchers, social scientists, and me, that I am supposed to be an agronomist, but I am not anymore, in 2017, and now we're a team of 10 people with really diverse backgrounds, and as I said before, a really, really broad network. And yes, we have built long-term relationships both in the team and with our networks. So I think that the key to that was to make room for individuals in the context of the collective. I mean, we define Bioleft as a humus where everyone can flourish doing what they like and therefore what they are good for.
Thanks. So yes, stimulating engagement for us. So I'm a marine ecologist myself, and the feeling I had in open science is what we're trying to replicate with Openscapes. So the feeling that I had when I joined our Open Sci and our ladies in our studio community was amazing. Like I felt like I could ask questions and could be braver and was welcomed into this new community. And it really, that feeling is really what we're trying to do, is that first entryway to open science. So we do that partly through art that you've been seeing on the slides, and thinking about how can we welcome more folks to open science, and also through storytelling. A lot of this has been through, early days was through my experience as a marine ecologist, shifting to open science, but now there's more and more stories to tell. And something we've seen is that people are no longer, researchers are no longer saying why open science, they're saying how, show me, help me. But I wanted to say one big way we've stimulated engagement is through this flywheel that we've developed, which is, so a flywheel is a big, heavy thing. It's a physical thing that's existed for centuries. It's something that holds energy, and it's really hard to push and get moving. You can think of it like a potter's wheel if you're a potter, or if you can think about pottery. It's something that takes a long time to push and to get going. And but then once it's going, it really spins and it continues holding energy. So that's like the concept that we think about with movement building and Openscapes. But it's also, we have 6 concrete steps that we're able to then repeat over and over in different contexts to help build this momentum. And again, you know, it's not the first 100 times or 1,000 times before it starts moving, but then that energy just keeps going. But something that is actually the first step of this flywheel is the idea of leveraging what works, and like finding the people that, like Esther said, finding the people that, finding what's work and using it in new places. So like supporting those people that are already doing the work. Yeah, so anyway, so I come to think about this as forking, and forking is a concept from software development where you can take code that's working and put it into your own place and modify it for your own needs. But importantly, it is still connected back to the original source. So this happens through GitHub, is like one tangible way we can think about this. It's connected back, both so you can contribute back, but also so you can give credit and kind of grow. You know, you're not on your own. So we're forking code, but we're also forking documentation. We're forking curriculum styles. We're forking whole programs. That the whole NASA program that I mentioned was really forked from our flagship program called the Champions Program, that helps science teams connect with each other and learn about open science. The Pathways to Open Science for Black researchers was forked from this idea as well. So we're really trying to like take what works and bringing those to new places. Movement building has been a big part of this too, watching the Get Out the Vote movement or climate justice movements, and thinking about like what works. Like Taylor Swift is building a movement. What works there? Like the specificity of her storytelling really helps people like join that movement and see themselves to it. So we're these are a couple approaches we're using. And one final thing I'll say is like the flywheel is a tool that I reach for when I'm planning, when I'm designing curriculum, when I'm talking about impact, just like I reach for R when I'm doing data analysis, or at Jupyter Hub when I'm thinking about cloud computing. So it's an open source tool that all of you can use and fork as well.
So really, the engagement to drive the docket is reminding me of a quote from Benjamin Franklin, who said, tell me and I forget, teach me and I may remember, and then involve me and I learn. So that's how we pushed for the idea. We really thought that the next step is, after this talk in the World Science Forum, is to create a paper, involve all who can advise and can contribute to the idea, from the GUI Foundation, from Dona Foundation, from really experts in the field. And then we started to work closely with institutions, with communities, with researchers, to understand if they really like this, they want to have this sort of platform and this sort of concept in the continent. And then little by little, we started to have meetings and engagement with communities, and then it resonated very well with Ministry of Cultural Heritages and communities and data creators from indigenous knowledge and cultural heritage, and also the people and experts and institutions that would like to collect this data and collect this metadata around indigenous knowledge and cultural heritage. So this is how we really try to engage more with community, and this is how we moved a little bit ahead with the idea. And then, yeah, here we are.
Great, thank you. So I think some of you already touched on this a bit, but I think all of these projects are very much labors of love. And so kind of what are the support structures and resources that you're relying on? And in particular, relying on to kind of coordinate your efforts across geographies, sectors, career stages, kind of any of those coordination efforts that are relevant. So maybe Nabil, we can start with you and then go back.
So I've just so the support structures, I think, are the stakeholders and all who believed in the idea. I think University of Nairobi, for example, offered some experts and data scientists to help us in achieving this idea. South Africa as well, we had a lot of like feedback from NRF and from institutions in South Africa, UCT as well. Now there are a lot of universities as well that are interested in building up this sort of model that can be applied in the whole continent. We were thinking of involving different regions in the continent, like in Western Africa, we are working with EcoConnect to maybe create a node for the docket there. In the Eastern region, we are working with GCC Africa to help creating a node as well. I'm personally working on the North African part so that we have sort of a backup for the platform. In Southern Africa, we are still building our way as well, but that's basically the structure that we want to build, a sort of an independent infrastructure in the continent, so that we can operate without, let's say, the need of having a lot of let's say technology from the global north, you know.
So when we teach with Openscapes, when we think about open science, we think about tooling and people as this beautiful feedback loop. And so that's the way I was thinking about this question as well. People have been the most important part of Openscapes and the partnerships we've had. Designing the whole NASA project and the flywheel was work with Erin Robinson from Metadata Game Changers. And she really brought the idea of how we can build our values more expressly into Openscapes, and also think about scaling, or not scaling, but necessarily, that maybe that's not the right word, but how to think about sustainability like from the beginning, and to say that out loud as we work with groups. So I think that she and many other partners have also helped us say out loud that paid time to learn is a really important value of Openscapes. And as we say that out loud, more and more partners find us. And so I think being part of the open community and sort of putting our ideas out there and investing the time in writing blogs, giving talks, like having one-on-ones with people helps other partners find us. So that's been a big part of our partnerships. And then on the tooling side, we're using the same tools that we're teaching researchers with open science. So we are role modeling and learning just alongside our community. So everything we do is open on GitHub. We use Quarto to make beautiful books with both R and Python underneath, but also most of the things that I spend my time writing and doing, it doesn't have code in it anymore, but I'm still using those same tools and being able to role model. So that really breaks down the sort of front stage, backstage part of teaching and learning, and like also helps other people see that and do it themselves. And what's amazing is that this combination of people and tooling and this sort of beautiful feedback loop means that our community is growing and sharing in an amazing way. And so many people are leveling up in their jobs way faster than we would expect, or that I had expected, and like taking these practices to new places. So shared Google Docs in like high level NOAA leadership meetings now, like that's culture change around open science. And so I think that having those people and tooling together has been a big part of the support.
Well, our support structures can be understood as institutions, networks, and resources. About the institutions, Bioleft, although it's an organization in itself now, is based at the Center for Research of Transformation in Argentina. And there are many other initiatives or many other researchers working on similar topics, which has helped a lot to learn about, I don't know, coordination, replication, documentation, a lot. And this is like the institutional part, but we are also part of several networks, both locally and international networks. We are part of the Global Open Sources Initiative, which has helped us a lot too. And the participatory breeding group, it's a regional group coordinated by Seed Change. And we also rely on digital technologies that facilitate the coordination, such as WhatsApp groups that work as forums where stakeholders share questions, interests, information, and also our platform that, despite being in a beta version, connects people and brings certain infrastructure for data sharing and interactions. Our resources consist of very limited funding and voluntary work. After our initial 3-year funding from Future Earth, we have secured funding for the last 4 years successfully, but the funding periods are really short. They are like a 1-year funding, and participatory breeding takes at least 6 years. So this is a challenging part of our resources or support. Institutionally, in Argentina, citizen science is being recognized, and last year there was a specific funding or support for our projects. So thank you, Guillermina, that is here representing the ministry. And then so yeah, this is our, and some of us have certain institutional positions, like some of us are researchers or have some positions that help us to commit our time to Bioleft, but there's a lot of voluntary work too. Just to give you an idea of how time-consuming looking for funding is now, of a team of 10 people, 50% of the time dedicated to Bioleft of 2 of the members is allocated to fundraising, which limits a lot our capacity to work and scale. So yeah, this is a big bottleneck we are facing now.
Yeah, that makes it feel a little bit unfair to follow that, because I realized I'm from a very privileged context. I'm based at a university in the Netherlands, although that privileged context might end because yesterday they announced severe budget cuts. So we might not be in that context in the next couple of years, but we have been very privileged in terms of resources. So we don't really suffer as much from the funding aspect, I would say. But we do see that, if there's no higher level or management support, or if people can't dedicate their time to these types of initiatives, you're still nowhere. And I've mentioned the management support before, but it is really important, because I've seen in the open science team, for example, that professors or people at the higher level in the hierarchy of academia, they do want to engage with the team, they do have ideas, but then as soon as it comes to actually attending the only 4 meetings that we have of an hour and a half, so it's not a lot of time investment, some of them drop off slowly and disappear, and they don't have time for it. And it's very nice to have very enthusiastic PhD candidates that do have some of the time to attend these meetings and to engage. But as was mentioned yesterday, if you want to engage people with open science practices, it's more helpful if it's coming from their direct colleagues. So if the professors are saying this is the way to go, we want this, etc., it's more encouraging, unfortunately, than if it comes from a PhD candidate. I don't necessarily agree with that. Same thing, if I say open science is a good thing, they take me less serious than if a full professor is saying, like, this is the way to go, we will go there. And that's, in a sense, that's fair. I see this in discussions between my own research discipline, where people are also more likely to trust me because I'm from the same discipline. I know all of the tools, I know people, etc. They're more likely to engage and agree or follow what it is that you're saying. And I can't always get a quantum nanoscience professor to do what it is that I want. Luckily, we have very enthusiastic quantum nanoscience people in the team. But what I did want to highlight, so we're in the Netherlands, Delft. That's not a very diverse geographic area. We, of course, have people from other countries, etc., but the context is really focusing on the Netherlands. But what I want to highlight from that is that we do have the open science communities, and in the Netherlands, that's the only community where people from support backgrounds and from education, from all types of different academic backgrounds come together in one community and really exchange ideas and practices. And at least for the Dutch context, I'm not aware of any other community that is so welcoming in the sense of the backgrounds of people. Normally it's there's an association for professors or early stage careers or PhD candidates. So they all tend to move in the similar bubbles, and these open science communities, they really cut across career and career stages, I would say, and also career backgrounds. So we're not as diverse in terms of geographical regions, etc., like the other initiatives. But yeah, the career differences really make a difference.
Great, thank you. So many of you have been talking about kind of the journey as your initiatives grew. So you all presumably kind of started as small fish in small ponds and then became big fish in small ponds, and then either small fish or even big fish in big ponds, right? So how have you leveled up? And could you each kind of talk about that journey and what you've learned? So Julia, maybe we can start with you.
So I was thinking about this question in terms of inflection points. So here's a few inflection points and kind of what I took from them. So in 2018, I got a 10-month fellowship with Mozilla for open science. It was the second time I had applied for it. I almost didn't apply again. But that was paid time that gave me space to think about what Openscapes would look like. I knew the feeling I wanted Openscapes. I knew what the outcome was, but I didn't know the mechanism. But through Mozilla, I had time to learn and saw the Mozilla Open Leaders program that Abby Kabonok-Mays led and started. And I saw that and I was like, how do we fork that into data science for teams? And that's what the Openscapes Champions program became. In 2021 is another inflection point. That's when the NASA awards started. that's really when Erin Robinson, my partner, saw that we could fork that Champions program into NASA to solve NASA's big challenge. And that was a big inflection point, not only because that was a 3-year award, something I had never thought we could achieve at that point. So she saw what was possible and helped bring Openscapes there. But also something that was really interesting was like I was able to say to her, like, I'm super intimidated working with NASA. This is like, I've looked up to them my whole life. This is really intimidating. By saying that out loud, it turned out all 12, like the people we were working with at NASA from those 12 data centers, they were all intimidated by each other also. So like saying that out loud and like being vulnerable was like a huge like inflection point in trying to be braver and try to be both vulnerable and braver in order to role model that that's what we need for change. 2021 was also a big inflection point because we really invested in inclusion. Our very first grant was a small event fund grant from CZI and Code for Science and Society. And we put all that funds towards a diversity, equity, and inclusion coach to help Erin and me think about how to bring more inclusion into the Champions program and into the NASA work. So that really helped us put psychological safety and growth mindset on equal levels with data science and cloud, which, you know, are the things that I thought had to like lead in these conversations. That year was also when we met Ileana Fenwick and Eli Holmes, who were both participating in the Champions program and since then have become leaders in their own programs. Ileana Fenwick at Pathways to Open Science and Eli Holmes at NOAA Fisheries. So like seeing what's possible in investing has then helped us like turn that flywheel in many, many more ways. And I would say 2024 now is a huge inflection point for us as well. We now have a 3-year award with NOAA Fisheries as they're seeing what NASA's doing, and that includes the Pathways to Open Science program. So we're able to combine the flywheels to really burst momentum. We were able to hire a cloud engineer that is able to spend more time on things that I need to level up into what my roles are and not be merging pull requests as much on a daily basis. But I also have left the university that I have been at for 11 years and started an LLC in order to be the financial mechanism behind Openscapes. So that's a big shift as well, to be supporting our communities and finding that mechanism for sustainability.
So just to reply to the question, we still didn't level up properly. We are trying to, but like the general idea is to go from local to global, really, to embrace the global standards and to involve the other registration agencies like in China, in Korea, in Latin America. We're trying to also have this sort of collaboration with different registration agencies so that we learn how they did build their infrastructure, how they are having the support from the community, and then try to apply that on our idea locally. So that's basically how we are looking at leveling up this the project and how we are trying to build up the sort of structure behind it.
Yeah, thinking about this question, I actually had both a sad and a happy realization, because thinking of the fish in the pond, etc. Because I now feel, this is the happy part, like I'm part of a school of fish, because it's not just me, it's really the community that is driving things. And we have so many other communities that have to deal with similar issues, which is why I have so many hats and I'm a member of a lot of communities, because I think we can really learn from each other and tackle the challenges that we're all facing, which are very much alike, or at least the ones that I see in my communities. And in that sense, yeah, I just mentioned that we're very well resourced at TU Delft, but I think some of the lesser resource communities are a lot more creative and achieving a lot more impactful change because of that, because they sometimes don't have the resources and they have to work around things. So I'm not necessarily saying that people don't need funding. That's definitely not the idea. But funding is not always everything. There's other ways to achieve what you want. And so I'll get to the sad part now, because I realize that right now I can't imagine myself doing something alone. I never do something without asking others for feedback, for collaborating. I think I have one article where my name is on alone, but even then that was inspired by so many people. So any success I've had is because of others. And then I realized how different that is from doing a PhD, where I get a little bit emotional, where I was sitting in the basement by myself, working until 10 in the evening, because that's how long the machine was reserved for me. I'm just really having to do everything by myself. And yeah, so I'm happy I don't have to do it.
Well, now it's difficult to follow you. So, well, thinking about the inflection points, I had thought of the question in a different way, but I think the inflection points is a good framing. We usually present Bioleft as growing in a spiral with different cycles and coming back to the origins by broadening. And I have some inflection points that can help understand the journey of Bioleft. The first one was when we started, when we found open source and open access as a bridging innovation and as a bridge and as a boundary object, whatever, to enable dialogue. But then we realized that we were a team of 4 people and we couldn't have any kind of enforcement of the licenses, and that was a huge expectation and we could do nothing about that. And then was when the idea of the platform and using digital technologies to track the seed exchanges appeared. And it started like another phase of Bioleft, building this platform and the seed archive and facilitating heterogeneous seed exchanges. And at that moment, we felt that for feeding the platform, we needed to develop some seeds. We couldn't ask people to put on their seeds if we didn't do it ourselves. So we started working on participatory plant breeding ourselves, developing maize for organic agriculture, and well, building the networks. And that was a really amazing phase. But one day, a team of another university said, well, we have collected 156 tomato varieties from seed banks in Europe mainly, but they are Argentinian, but we do not know what to do with them. So we said, well, start with the platform and the participatory breeding. And that is when tomato arrived, and you can see all the pictures of people like really excited. And we started like with public tastings. So people came to the university to taste different tomato varieties, and there they discovered that their memories were still alive, and that the tomatoes, the delicious tomatoes still exist, and that the tomatoes that we buy at the greengrocers are not the only option. And people got involved knowing that they had something to contribute. They could like save the tomatoes or something like that. And this is like a really big moment in Bioleft. And now, sadly, we are like in a new spiral and growing a lot, because our government is withdrawing a lot of funding for public policies, not public research only, but public extension, support for farmers. We had a really huge program of seeds distribution that is now finished. So a lot of people are demanding Bioleft to take some new role in facilitating and coordinating the seeds access and seeds availability. It's a huge challenge we are facing right now. And by combining the open source, the platform, the breeding, the policy making, is that my original idea for this answer was that we are not a big fish or a small fish in a big pool or whatever. Like we are, and I thought this morning, like in spring waters, like going to one pole to another, like, and we have many hats, and that has advantages. Like it's like we are like octopuses talking to different communities, and but on the other hand, we feel outsiders everywhere. Yesterday, I was talking to Esther about that because we do not fit in a certain poll, and we have so many questions that need to be answered about data quality, about long-term funding, about the incentives not only for researchers but also for the other stakeholders we work with. So it's like a really big challenge to be swimming in different pools.
We love animals here at ORCA. So we've got octopus, gazelle. So we're doing well. All right. So one last question, and then we'll open it to the audience. And so we're big on kind of asks and offers. And so what do you need from this audience to continue your project's trajectory, and kind of describe how you think that ask would address a concrete challenge you're grappling with? And
Yeah, sorry. So really what we need from the audience and from the global community is to go and see the Africa PID Alliance website, check the docket platform. We need a lot of criticism. We are waiting for a lot of feedback. We really want that in order to improve what we are doing. So please go ahead, just hit Africa PID Alliance on Google, go to the docket platform, try to upload a PDF or an image or a video of a dance, folkloric dance or indigenous knowledge dance. Assign your DOI from there or assign your identifier from there, and then tell us what's happening. If you like that, how can we improve it? And that's the way forward, basically.
great, thanks. Maybe we'll just go down this way.
So I would say we still need sustainable jobs in open science. I don't know really what those look like. Like I would have thought Esther was an example. I can think of a few examples, but I don't think there's enough. And I think it's hard to encourage folks to shift to open science if I can't even see examples of what that looks like as a sustainable job. So I would say that this happens, we can think about this across all of our sectors and like fork those experiences from each other, right? So in the NASA example, a lot of the work we've been able to do is because it has been paid time as part of people's jobs to think about like their deliverable about supporting users using data is like there's now a portion of that thinking that is open science, right? So like they're able to call 20% of their time as open science. That has not been really stable though in the NASA context. We'll see going forward. It's something we're always advocating for. With academics, I think it's also really important. I won't go into all the examples, but I think having these sustainable jobs is really important. I also just think if we're asking people to change, we have to be willing to change ourselves. So if we're asking them to change their workflows to open science, what can we change about our systems of contracts, granting, reporting? What causes all of us friction, and what can we do away with? What can we say like, oh, I have the power to have this reporting be less, Mozilla asks us to report like 2 sentences in a pre-filled form that they've automated with our application information, because then they're able to slurp those 2 lines of our reporting into their bigger report. They're not going to read a huge report we write and know that that's a lot of effort for us. So like they've reduced that. It took, it's taking, I'm talking to people throughout the conference about years that it's taken to get a contract signed. How can we like use our levers to fight those things? I think Jen Polka's Recoding America book is an amazing, is an amazing example of what it can look like to help sort of dismantle systems, especially in government and otherwise, that don't serve us. And how can we think about like dismantling systems of oppression and learn from other communities or for things that don't serve us. I was talking with Fernando and Mike yesterday about how they've shifted the tenure and review process at their universities. It's like, how do we share those experiences and like fork that, follow that? Yeah, I would just say too, with all of this, time to learn and time to teach are so important, and those need to be paid efforts. When I was just recently at a conference, I was with a NOAA administrator who, when she asked me what the biggest challenge I saw was in, for open science, and I said time to learn, and she grabbed me by the arm and sat me down so she could write that down and follow up with me, because everyone else is telling her about new tech or AI or all these different things, but like time to learn is an actionable thing that's a lever she could shift, and she got super jazzed about it.
Well, yeah, I agree with time to learn, and yeah, time to learn together. Yeah. Well, not surprisingly, Bioleft is facing tensions between short and I introduced all the challenges, but I'm gonna tell them again in case you want to support us. So Bioleft is facing challenges related to short-term fundings and huge systemic long-term projects. But we are also facing challenges due to not to living in a bubble. I said the national and global context is showing a trend towards every man for himself. I Googled this phrase. I hope it's right. Because individualism is being in the general response towards uncertainty. Scientists are seen as privileging people, and it's clear that we are, and we need to acknowledge that we are, that having a salary is already a privilege. So in this context, we at Bioleft particularly, we are moving between the fear of biopiracy and sharing information because of misappropriation of knowledge, and the need to secure revenues for farmer readers who commit to collective actions. That there are not many, but there are some, and they need a way of living of that. So we talked about a lot of we talked a lot about incentives yesterday, but what about the incentives for people that are not scientists and that are volunteers? Are we expecting to rely on volunteer work like forever? What guarantees that we are giving stakeholders? What guarantees are we giving to stakeholders when we ask them to open up in a pond of sharks and there is another animal? Okay, but these are bad ones, hungry ones. We talked a lot about repositories, but what do we do about data quality when we work under citizen science approaches? So open science is not only about what we open, but how we produce the knowledge and with whom and for whom. So we need to build practices of care in order to deal with the lack of responses we face. We need to acknowledge our privileges in order to devise situated precarious answers for the needs of the stakeholders we work with directly and indirectly. And I thought that we need an institutionalization strategy of open knowledge for transformation with a clear purpose that allows us to plan ahead, contemplating uncertainty and flexibility in our work. So we need to think of strategies to problematize scale and pace, and to find global synergies while enhancing situated visions and strategies. We need to act fast while acknowledging the multiple rhythms and processes we face.
How to follow that again? For multiple reasons, because I think indeed we can't rely on volunteers. It's not sustainable, so fully agree with both of your points. But also, yeah, I just need open science to become mainstream. I'm tired. I need it to happen tomorrow so that people actually have the time to dedicate to it. So if we could just fix that. But not only that, because even if researchers have all of the time in the world to dedicate it to open science, they will still never have time enough to fully specialize in all of these areas in open science that there are. I don't think, or I hope to find a person that can do a fully curated data set and the software and engaging citizens and the public and do a podcast, and there will not be enough time in the world. So I hope that you can keep in mind that there's various individuals, also like myself, data stewards, but also research software engineers, community managers that do a lot of these type of work. And doing that in the background currently as well, due to how our academic systems are structured. And I think it will be helpful that if we really want to move towards open science and towards more collaborative research cultures, to also take into account these roles and these people. And then with that, I'll end with a tiny criticism on how we'll do that in the Netherlands, where we have this recognition and rewards stream. At the beginning of this year, they were like, we're going to focus on academics, and support staff is its own separate branch, and we don't have to include that in the reforms, which I think is hugely missing the nice boat that they were on in the pond of fish, and yeah, missing I'm not saying half of the universities, but they are missing some people that could have been included in this reform movement. So I'll end there. So don't be like the Netherlands. Be like the Netherlands, but not that part. Thanks.
Great, thank you all. So we do have some time for questions. So I hope folks, we have a couple, I think we have at least one floating mic, so don't be shy.
Thank you so much to the panelists and to everyone for such a great conversation the last couple of days. Again, I'm Sarah at the American Institute of Physics Publishing, so one of the two publishers that are here. One of the things that came to mind with both of those talks, and particularly having Argentina and the Netherlands kind of represented here, is all of us face serious threats of cuts to the work that we do, given the funding sources that we have. And a kind of recurring thought that came to me from this panel and yesterday's sessions too was you just the things you threw out, you know, the podcasts, the breadth of work we can do is very overwhelming in some ways. And perhaps coming at it from a more conservative point of view, because that's how publishers are, right? I'm curious if we as a group have thought about the question of what is enough. Because yes, we can do all these things, but it's an iceberg, and we can chip off our pieces. But I'm really interested for all of us as a community to think through, given our respective priorities, what is enough? Because we can do everything, but we can do anything, but we can't do everything. So in light of that environment of serious cuts that all of us are at risk for, some of you already experiencing, and the diversity of viewpoints here that makes distilling into one thing impossible. How are you thinking about what is enough? And everyone, that's a question to everyone in the room. How are you from your respective organizations thinking about what is enough? So I don't mean to narrow the horizon in a depressing way, but you know, bringing a kind of pragmatic lens. I'm curious on your thoughts.
Yeah, so I think that comes back to how do you work as a team, and that's I think what we've done well at my faculty at least, is to discuss with the departments, discuss with sections, what is it that you want to focus on, what is it that you want to do, and do you have the people in order to do that? So that requires discussing values and yeah, the focus that people want to go to, because it's something that we hear a lot from academics as well, where when you talk about open science, it's like, I can't do everything. And that's also not the idea. The idea is focus on one of these things that you're good at or you want to continue. And then find someone else who does the rest or does one of these other things. And then together you can do maybe all of the things. But yeah, maybe indeed that's not necessary. Maybe for certain types of research, citizen science is less applicable, or maybe you don't want to do a podcast. There's different ways of transferring information, of course.
Yeah, thank you. It's a great question. Well, I don't have a clear answer to that, of course. But what we do is, I think what we have been doing these years is prioritizing sticking together, and what is the minimum we can do to keep together moving, and maybe slowly, and maybe we can leave things for the future, but what is the minimum that we need to keep the community together? Not because only not because of Bioleft, because of the community brings a lot more things than Bioleft and SIDS and so, but it's a question we really need to work on prioritizing and really dimensioning the time we are investing in doing all the things we do, because it's it's a lot. I'm sorry, it's the only thing I can say.
Well, one of the things I wanted to propose to the group as a potential action item from today's session to take the work forward is there value in sort of generating smaller working groups around some of these foci and sort of coming up with recommendations around, you can't boil the ocean. Sorry, such an annoying corporate buzzword. But what are the things that we as so publishing hat on, those of us who work on the creation and dissemination of research, what are some near-term things? And then could we roadmap out that these are the small things we're chipping away at. These are the things we want to do in the middle term because these are the long-term things we want to achieve. I'm just trying to think how we can keep this moving into future conversations that I know that are going to happen at CERN next year, that might happen in Cape Town in December. So just throwing that out to the group.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, can I add something? Yeah, and also finding the synergies, because we are duplicating work a lot. A lot. And
there was a question. Hi, thank you so much for very, very honest and thorough panel. I know you all prepared a lot and we learned a lot. And I guess the point comes down to what Esther, you said, and also what you were saying, Julia, open science jobs. Currently, a lot of mobilization is happening through grassroots initiatives like yours, where we had this conversation that sustainability is very short term. We don't have like 5 years runway to plan bigger things. And like even the point of coordination, you need a lot of time for coordination. Like either I do my job or coordinate or sit in like multiple working group. But these are all quite valuable. So maybe it's an open question on like, what is the vision for open science job? What does that look like? Because academia shouldn't suck in all the talent, but also grassroots community shouldn't be left unsupported.
Yes. Yeah, the vision I think is, let's see. So when I learned how to, so I'm a marine ecologist. I learned how to scuba dive for my PhD work, and which was awesome. And they taught us, my scuba instructor taught us like this four kind of step framework of the first time you are unconsciously incompetent at this thing, then you become consciously competent, then you become consciously competent, and then finally you become unconsciously competent. So like that, I think that's the vision for open science, is that it's like it's not invisible, but it's like, it's this competence that we all have. And that takes a lot of, like, that does take like time of mindset shifts, skill set shifts, priority shifts. Yeah, so I'll just leave that there.
Yeah, I think this requires funding changes, because the reason that I can strategize or think about things in the future in 5 years, which is how department plans are run, is because my position will be there in 5 years. I will actually leave my position soon, but we will have a new person starting. So it's a permanent position that gives you space to think about long-term things. Funding doesn't work like that. And especially not when funding existing initiatives. And that's the same with research, it's the same with software, and that needs to change. And also work across borders. In science, we don't live in countries, we work together across these borders. And unfortunately, most of the funding agencies work across borders, which is very complicated to then keep an initiative going, which is then based in Europe, but we need funding to get the data in from Latin America. And I just can't get any funding for this. So yeah, and that applies to positions as well. So
I'd add one other thing. So there's an idea of operational hardening at NASA, where it's like we've tried this, we've seen that it's working. Now let's invest more deeply in what we're seeing is working. And so, I mean, one idea would be to fund the groups in this room and beyond. Like, I know Openscapes has been doing everything that it's done with a small team of under 4 people working being paid up to half time, right? So like, imagine like doubling that capacity without having to staff up. I mean, I've talked to many of you here that are founders or leads that are undercutting your wages in order to keep the thing going. Like, we know that that's not sustainable. Like, let's tackle that. Yeah.
I would add, sorry, Tiffany from UNESCO. Thank you for everyone. This was a very inspiring set of talks. 2 things, one about jobs and one about the coordination question. Regarding work, we can think of the 2 extremes. One is to have everyone doing a little bit of open science, and the other is to have specialization so that we have open science roles in particular. We see examples of both of those in active open science communities in different regions, recognizing that there is a pressure when we're asking whether it's a researcher or a community member to also add open science to the long list of what they are required to do. That is a challenge. And yet that has advantages. It builds respect and understanding of what this work is. We have seen from years of work in science communication and engagement that when there is a role that is created for that, there's also a risk. There's a specialization that is tremendously helpful, and there is a risk of placing this work in a corner and having it be separated and losing the respect for this work. So I encourage us to grapple with that. I don't have an answer to say one is better than the other, but both exist. And the answer for you in your community may be different. And I would call for flexibility from funders, supporters, partners, donors to recognize the spectrum of those kinds of work and support both as valid. Going to the coordination question, which I agree, Sarah, this is the real big thing. Of course, UNESCO, you know, we're thinking globally. We believe that it's valuable to keep an overview perspective so that we work efficiently together. And that requires us to step back when someone else is doing the work. And that's really hard for institutions to do. So considering in this work, are you willing to take the time at the beginning when you are designing work, when you're creating a project? Are you willing to take the time at the beginning to really find out who is already working in that space? And if you find that somebody is, are you able to stop? Have you started early enough that you can change direction or press pause? The earlier we go in the process to do that, the easier it is to effectively coordinate by not duplicating effort and duplicating work, and instead going to fill the genuine need. Thanks.
Does anyone want to? Yeah, quickly, and then we'll close.
I'll do 30 seconds. I mean, to this point, we're funded by the Sloan Foundation, and we're working with HBCU faculty. I'm from Howard University, the Center for Applied Data Science Analytics. What we're learning through our work with faculty is a lot of faculty who are new are afraid of this very problem, that someone will have more skill, take their idea, and run with it. And so I just wanted to +1 that, because we are finding that new faculty are hesitant to engage in open science due to this sort of the idea that their ideas are going to be ultimately co-opted.
Okay. Any final comments from our panel?
I would just say that I think it's relevant to this moment. Like, there's not one way to do it. There's many, many, many ways, and that diversity is a good thing. And I think we can think about how to join each other's efforts, amplify them, join each other's parties, partnership with each other, and really, yeah, like welcome more people and encourage and support more people.
Thank you. I think that's a great closing message. So before we close, I just wanted to say one piece of logistics. So we're gonna take a break, but we'll come back 10 minutes early. So we'll come back at 10:50 so we can do some instructions for the breakouts, and then we'll have a full hour for the breakouts. So with that, please join me in giving a huge round of applause to our panelists. Oh yeah, I'm informed there's also food outside. So.